The Catherian detention facility on Proxima 7 was renowned throughout the galaxy for its perfect record. No prisoner had ever escaped. More importantly, no prisoner had ever lasted more than 30 rotations without breaking completely. The facility's director, Commander Zethkar, took immense pride in these statistics, until the human arrived. Captain Marcus Chen had been captured during the failed defense of the Terran colony of New Singapore. The humans had fought with their characteristic recklessness, throwing themselves against superior Catherian forces with nothing but primitive kinetic weapons and sheer determination. Chen had been the last to fall, found unconscious beneath a pile of dead Catherian soldiers, his weapon still smoking in his hands. Zethkar studied the human through the transparent aluminum barrier. Chen sat cross-legged in his cell, eyes closed, breathing slowly and deliberately. For 7 rotations, he had maintained this position for hours at a time, barely moving except to consume the nutrient paste they provided. "Begin Phase 1, Zethkar commanded. The temperature in Chen's cell plummeted to below freezing. Most species would be incapacitated within minutes, begging for warmth. Chen simply opened his eyes, acknowledged the change with a slight nod, and continued his meditation. Ice crystals formed on his breath, but his posture never wavered. After 6 hours, they reversed the process, flooding the cell with oppressive heat that would have sent most beings into thermal shock. Chen removed his uniform jacket, folded it neatly, and resumed his position. Sweat beaded on his forehead, but his breathing remained controlled, rhythmic. "Impossible," muttered Guard Lieutenant Vexthal. "His core temperature should be spiking beyond survivable limits." Zethkar's mandibles clicked in annoyance. Phase 2. Remove all light. The cell plunged into absolute darkness, a sensory deprivation that had driven previous prisoners to madness within hours. They left Chen in the black void for 3 full rotations. When they restored the lights, they found him exactly as they had left him, still meditating, apparently unaffected. "How?" Vexthal whispered. Chen opened his eyes and looked directly at the observation window, though he shouldn't have been able to see through the one-way barrier. His lips curved into a slight smile. "Phase 3, Zethkar snarled. They flooded the cell with a cacophony of sound, screaming frequencies that would shatter most beings' nervous systems, subsonic pulses designed to induce terror, and high-pitched whines calculated to cause maximum psychological distress. The other prisoners in nearby cells began wailing in sympathetic agony. Chen simply cupped his hands over his ears and continued his meditation. His lips moved occasionally, as if he were speaking to himself, though the monitors detected no vocalizations. By the 10th rotation, Guard Sergeant Kolaran was showing signs of psychological stress just from observing the human's unnatural resilience. His scales had taken on a sickly yellow hue, and his hands trembled as he operated the controls. "Sir," Kolaran ventured, "perhaps we should consider—" "Phase 4, Zethkar interrupted. They introduced the pheromone cocktail, a mixture of chemical compounds designed to trigger every negative emotion simultaneously: fear, despair, rage, and panic. The concentration was enough to drive even hardened warriors to catatonic breakdown. Chen wrinkled his nose at the sudden smell, then did something unprecedented. He laughed. It was a quiet chuckle at first, but it grew into genuine, hearty laughter that echoed through the cell. The sound was picked up by the facility's audio system and transmitted throughout the complex. Other prisoners, driven to the edge by their own torments, heard it and fell silent. The laughter continued for nearly an hour. "Commander," Vexthal's voice cracked. "The other prisoners, they're asking about the human. They want to know what he's laughing about." Zethkar felt something he had never experienced in his decades of service: uncertainty. He activated the communication system. "Human," his translated voice echoed in the cell. "You will break. They all break." Chen stood slowly, his joints popping after hours of stillness. He approached the wall where he seemed to sense the observation window. "You want to know why I'm laughing?" Chen's voice was steady, conversational. "I'm laughing because you think this is torture." He began to pace, his movements fluid despite the abuse his body had endured. You see, my species has a saying, pain is temporary, but quitting lasts forever. Every human child learns to endure. We're born on a world that tries to kill us daily. Extreme weather, natural disasters, predators, diseases that adapt faster than we can cure them. We don't just survive these things, we thrive because of them. Chen stopped and faced the observation window directly. You've given me cold? I've trained in Arctic conditions where exposed skin freezes in minutes. Heat? I've operated in deserts where the sand burns through boots. Darkness? I've spent weeks in cave systems mapping underground rivers. Noise? I grew up in New Singapore, where construction never stops and cargo haulers launch every few minutes. Colran backed away from his console. Commander, I can't continue this. And the chemicals? Chen continued, his voice gaining strength. You've made me feel afraid, angry, desperate. You know what that feels like to a human, Tuesday. We live with those emotions every day and choose to keep going anyway. We turn them into tools. Vexthul began to hyperventilate, his gills fluttering rapidly. Please, Commander, make it stop. Zethkar found himself stepping back from the observation window as Chen's voice filled the chamber. Here's what you don't understand about humans. We don't break under pressure, we adapt. Every technique you've used, every method you've employed, my species has used on itself for training purposes. We study pain, catalog it, and learn to master it. What you call torture, we call Tuesday's workout. The facility's automated systems began registering psychological distress alerts from multiple guards. Throughout the complex, Catherian personnel were requesting reassignment, medical leave, anything to get away from the humans' unsettling presence. Chen sat back down in his meditation position. But here's the truly beautiful part, he said, softly. Everything you've done to me, it's just made me stronger, more focused, more determined. You've essentially given me a very comprehensive training regimen. He closed his eyes and smiled. Thank you. Commander Zethkar stared at the readings on his screens. Chen's vital signs were not just stable, they were improving. His heart rate was lower than when he'd arrived. His stress hormones were within normal ranges. His neural activity suggested he was genuinely at peace. For the first time in his career, Zethkar felt afraid. Outside Chen's cell, Guard Lieutenant Vexthul collapsed to his knees. Commander, he whispered, I beg you, please, transfer me to any other duty. I can't watch this anymore. Within hours, similar requests flooded in from across the facility. The human hadn't broken after 15 rotations of their most intensive methods. Instead, he seemed to be treating it as a vacation. And somehow, that was the most terrifying thing any of them had ever witnessed. Chen opened his eyes one more time and spoke to the darkness. Whenever you're ready to talk about prisoner exchange or treaties, I'll be here. I've got all the time in the galaxy. His laughter echoed through the halls once more, and 3 more guards submitted immediate resignation requests. The humans, it turned out, were far more dangerous than anyone had imagined, not because of their weapons or their ships, but because nothing the galaxy could throw at them was worse than what they had already thrown at themselves. And somehow, they had learned to find joy in the struggle,